In this video, I'm doing a step-by-step detailed process of how to make a wig for a beginner. This video is sponsored by West Kiss, so thank you so much to them for sending me this hair to use and for sponsoring this video. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to need is obviously your hair. You can use a frontal or a closure, but I'm going to be using a frontal that is in the deep wave 20 inches. And I am pairing that with 4 bundles, 2 bundles of 28, 1 bundle of 26, and 1 bundle of 24. Next, you will need your wig cap. I like to use the mesh dome cap, and I recommend it if you are a beginner. You will also need a marker, a white or metallic, that will show up on the dome cap. You will also need a mannequin head. I do recommend investing in a canvas mannequin head because it just makes wig making easier. You can get these pretty cheap off Amazon. They come in different sizes and inches based off of your own head measurements. And you can Google on how to accurately measure your head. I also suggest that you invest in a mannequin head holder. I use a tripod that provides me a sturdy base for wig making, but you can also find cheaper options available at Sally's that you can attach like to the end of a table. You will also need a needle and thread. If you are here to make one by sewing machine, you will use the needle and thread that comes with your machine. And if you are making one by hand, you need a curved tipped needle. It goes without saying that you will also need scissors. You will also need T-pins to help aid you in the construction of your wig. First thing you want to do is place the dome cap onto the mannequin head. You want to make sure that it is centered, and then you're going to use 2 T-pins to pin down the nape of the cap to mimic the hairline of your nape. Next, you want to start the foundation for your wig. So you are going to center your frontal or your closure on top of the mannequin head, on top of the dome cap, and then you are going to begin to pin it down. So you want the front of the closure or the frontal about 1/4 of an inch in front of the dome cap. After you pin the center, pinning the sides should be very easy. The only thing you need to do is just pin them straight down like so. The end of the closure should be pinned right at the end of the mesh dome cap. Now you're going to pin the hair of the frontal or the closure out of the way so you can trace the outline onto the cap. This is where either your metallic marker or your white marker comes into play. So I'm using the metallic Sharpie, and basically what you want to do is just trace the outline of either your closure or your frontal onto the mesh dome cap. After you've done that, then you want to draw the foundation for laying your wefts. So what I do is just begin drawing the line straight across, and mine do end up looking a little crooked because it was hard to do on camera, but you want to try to make them as straight as possible. Also, if you are using a sewing machine for this method, I would suggest making the lines about a finger width apart. If you are sewing them by hand, I would make them a little bit closer together, maybe like a pinky finger apart. You also want to keep in mind how many bundles you are using. Of course, if you are trying to fit 4 or 5 bundles, you want the lines way closer together. If you are only doing 2 or 3 bundles, you want the lines further apart. And like I said, I know my lines are crooked, but you want to try them to make them going straight across. If you are using a closure instead of a frontal, you want to do the exact same thing, and you would just continue to make your lines curve around the closure at the crown of the head. So this is what your foundation should look like. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I do mine, but this is what works for me. And now we are going to get into how to hand sew. So first you need some thread. I cut around an arm's length of thread, and then you want to thread one end of the thread through the curved tipped needle like so. You want to even out the thread so you can begin to make the knot that will be at the end. So this is just a simple knot that I just tie at the end of the thread, and what I'm going to do is do this twice so that it is nice and secure. When sewing by hand, you want to line the weft up with the lines on the mesh dome cap. You want to put the needle through the dome cap, and then you want to put the needle through the track. And you're only going to do this when you are starting and finishing a track. So after you put it through, then you are going to feed the needle through the hole of the thread, like so. And this is going to create a more secure start by creating a knot at the beginning of the weft. As you continue to sew the weft on, two things are important. You want to go through the mesh dome cap but around the track, and then when you are bringing the needle through, you want to bring it through the loop of the thread on the left, as you can see in the video. This is important because you want to go around the track to preserve the longevity of the weft. And you want to make sure you're bringing that needle through the loop of thread, because that is going to create a more secure and strong sewing pattern. So once you get to the end of your track, you are once again going to go through the weft. So first you want to go through the dome cap, then you want to go through the weft. Then you want to create a knot. The way that I do that is you're going to wrap the thread around your needle 2 to 3 times. And then once you pull the needle through, you will pull it tight and pull it taut, and it creates a natural knot. And once you finish with that, you can cut the end of the thread, and then you can cut the end of the track and start over again. So at this point, you have successfully hand sewn a track onto your mesh dome cap, and you would just continue to repeat the process until your wig is finished. So now we're going to get into the sewing machine method. If you do not know how to operate a sewing machine, I suggest you learn how to do that first before following the steps in this video. I'm just going to point out the most important pieces of my sewing machine that I use when I am doing the sewing machine method. So one of the first and most important steps when creating a wig with the sewing machine is doubling your wefts. This is just going to ensure that you fit as many wefts as you can without it looking bulky on your mesh dome cap. For this part, you want to use a zigzag pattern. So with my particular sewing machine, I'm going to choose pattern 5 in the middle. And then you double the weft and line it up underneath the presser foot, and then you're going to begin to sew. You want to do this all the way to the end of the weft, and you want to do this for all of your bundles. And this is just a different angle for you to see how the sewing process should look. Once you have finished that, then you are ready to begin sewing the wefts onto the cap. So the first step that you want to do is line up the mesh dome cap underneath the presser foot. And then you want to grab your weft and you want to line that on top of your tracing line underneath the presser foot. Once you have everything aligned, you want to put your presser foot down, and then you're going to begin the sewing process. I like to start by lowering my needle, and then I'm going to use my foot pedal to begin to sew. Also, when I'm sewing onto the cap, I'm still using the same zigzag pattern that I used to double the weft, so just keep that in mind. While sewing the wefts on, you want to let the speed of the sewing machine guide you. You can provide a little bit of tension, as you see me doing in the video, but you don't want to pull or stretch the cap because that will cause shrinking. You also want to make sure that you are pausing, ensuring that your weft is still completely aligned and that you are following the foundation that you drew with your tracks. And once I get to the end, I sew all the way through, and then I use the reverse lever to do a little bit of reverse sewing just to make the end more secure, and then I just cut the weft. And then with the sewing machine, after you cut the weft, you also have to cut the thread. So you can use your thread cutter on the side of your sewing machine, or you can use scissors. Once you've got all your wefts sewn on either by machine or by hand, then it is time to move back to your frontal or your closure. You are going to put your wig on your mannequin head, and then you're going to pin down either your frontal or your closure so you can hand sew this on. When sewing down your frontal or your closure, you want to use the same technique as I showed you when you're sewing your weft on. So initially you want to go through the end of the frontal or the closure, and you want to go through the mesh dome cap. You then want to pull the needle through the thread to create that secure start of your sewing. As you continue to sew down the frontal or the closure, you want to go through the end of the frontal or the closure, and you still want to send that needle through that hole of the thread so that it creates a secure base. When you are sewing, you also want to go through the mesh dome cap as well, so please do not forget that. You want to stitch close together so that it is very secure, and you want to continue to sew all the way around until you are finished. So this is the end result of a sewing machine made wig. If you made yours by hand, it will look a little bit different, but it should still look nice and neat like so. I also added an elastic band to mine so I could wear this as a glueless unit. I have a video on how I do that I will put in the description box below. I have also fully customized the frontal by bleaching the knots. I have also plucked the frontal to make it look more realistic, and I have cut away the excess lace. And after that, the wig is finished. Now I'm just going to show you really quickly how I would apply this wig. I typically do not use a wig cap when I am doing a glueless wig. I just put it on and do a quick melt down process. First, I'm just going to take some edge control, and I'm going to lay down the perimeter of the wig, and I'm going to lay down my baby hairs and get the hairline to look exactly how I want it. Once I've done that, I'm going to take my styling foam or mousse, and I'm going to apply it all over the hairline of the wig. Then I'm going to tie it down with a silk or satin scarf or just whatever to make it lay down. And I'm going to leave that tied down for at least 15 minutes or so. And when you untie that scarf, it should be milted, it should look like scalp, it should just be laid, okay? So this is the finishing result of the wig that we made. Once again, this hair is from West Kiss. It is beautiful. It is the deep wave. I'll put all the information about this hair in the description box below. I hope this video was helpful to some of you who want to start making your own wigs, and please let me know if you have any questions. Stay tuned for the next video that will be in my wig making series. It will be how to pluck your frontal. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and until next time.